Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide, Volume 3. And today I have the awesome Annie with us. How are you, Annie?
Hi, yeah, I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm really well. Thank you for asking. A little bit cold, but apart from that, I'm all right. Thank you. Do you want to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do?
Sure. So I'm an artist and a producer. I release music under the name Austel. I'm originally from Devon, but I've been living in London for about 10 years.
Right?
And yeah, I work as a technician at the Roundhouse Studios and also as a freelancer teaching piano and sound engineering and as a producer. So lots
Right.
of things.
Yeah, lots of different things going on. That's amazing. So, Annie, you do lots of different things. And obviously, I met you at ICMP. So, you've had a musical education. How much have you done, and how long's that taken you to achieve all this stuff?
Well, it's been a bit of a journey, to be honest. So I had a lot of kind of access to music education growing up. I had piano lessons from a really young age and some really lovely music teachers at school who really supported my own music making as well as the curriculum. And then when I was 18, I decided not to go to university and to move to London to pursue being an artist and a musician. But then in 2020, obviously, there was a lot of change going on for everyone. And I kind of felt like a bit lost. Like I'd been freelance for quite a long time and having to kind of self motivate. And I was lucky enough to get a place on Omni Collective's engineering equality course.
Oh, wow.
Took place towards the end of 2020 and the start of 2021. And that was mostly online and kind of, yeah, working with one-to-one mentors. And then we had some opportunity to work in a studio in Brighton called Small Pond. So I went and did some recording there. And that process just kind of really empowered me and kind of made me realize that how much I'd been missing that kind of mentorship and education and structure. And so, yeah, I decided to enroll to do a master's at ICMP in creative music production, which I did part time over 2 years, so I could still work alongside it. But yeah, I literally graduated this summer. So uh,
Congratulations. Yeah, that must have been a real achievement. And kind of, you've done this like educationally. Do you find that that's been a struggle? Has that kind of like the cost of all that and having to move away from family and pursue your dream, has that kind of been hard for you to do?
yeah, definitely at times. And I think I recognize I come from a more privileged background than some other people, but there were definitely points where, I'd moved to London and was kind of really struggling to make ends meet. And I think I don't know a single musician who doesn't have like three other jobs. And I think that that's really difficult to kind of balance. That I've been working lots of different part-time roles
Right.
constantly and trying to kind of find that balance between earning enough but also having enough time to do what you need to do creatively. So yeah, it was definitely a bit of a thought when I enrolled to do the masters. And yeah, I think I was glad to do it part-time, especially because that meant that I wasn't so anxious about like stopping working. I could work alongside.
Yeah.
Mm. And then, yeah, obviously doing it part time meant I had access to those facilities for 2 years rather than one. So that was kind of,
Way of looking at it, isn't it? Yeah, that's great. Wow, that's really interesting. So obviously being a female producer as well, really underrepresented in the industry. What is it? 3% of producers are generally female. Is it around that amount? So
yeah, yeah.
how have you found that navigating the industry, being so heavily underrepresented as a producer?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I really noticed as soon as I started studying that I was like one of very few women in the room. And oftentimes I was the only woman in the room. Um, and while I did have classmates and tutors who were great allies, you can't help but feel more isolated in those situations. And
Brilliant.
yeah, that kind of had, I think being a bit older really helped with that because I'd already been in those situations a lot. Like generally as an artist, like, you're often the only woman on the lineup or you're kind of always working with other male musicians and producers. So I think being a bit older and having had that experience kind of equipped me to deal with that better in an educational setting and be able to kind of speak up about it more. And I think I'm really lucky in that my kind of interest in production really started to flourish after my friends Jenny and Katie set up 2% Rising, which is an amazing community for women, non-binary and trans people working in music audio. And so I kind of had that community to support me throughout that process, which was really important for lots of different reasons, I think, because they provide a space where you can ask questions and not feel embarrassed, or that I think sometimes on music forums there's a tendency, if you ask a question, then you get loads of people telling you things that you didn't even ask in the first place.
Did as well, yeah.
And so that's really nice to kind of have that space to feel that you can ask and not be kind of made to feel silly for asking. And they also share a lot of opportunities on there. So there's been a lot of collaborations, I know, between members and work opportunities coming through. And especially when things were still kind of in lockdown, they had like online mixed feedback sessions, which were amazing. And I started sharing some of my mixes on there, and that kind of, really helped.
Yes, it kind of reviews some of your work and get some feedback on it. That's really nice.
Exactly. And also I think, I can't forget to kind of credit the cis men that I have worked with who have also been really supportive for me on my journey. In particular, my collaborator Adam Stark, who I produced my first couple of EPs with, and he has just like always been very encouraging, and like whenever I was working in the studio with him would really kind of help me understand what was going on, and kind of as I started to mix more, he was really kind of like, you don't need me anymore, like, you do it. So I think
that's really nice. Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned 2% Rising, actually, because I was looking for a studio to do the tracks, because we're working on a track together ourselves, right? So I was looking, okay, where can I find a studio? Went on to 2% Rising and I found the Strong Rooms, and they're doing a 50% offer on there as well for 2% Rising. So I gave Ella a message on there, and she's like, Saskia, we'd love to help you out. So again, thank you so much for providing that platform to women and underrepresented groups. Really useful, and really kind of, for me, it's just offered me tips and tools and just networking as well, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, for sure. I think like networking, I think, is a daunting thing to do anyway. And then if you're like in a room full of white men, you're just a bit like, oh, how do I find common ground? And of course there is common ground, but I think it is much more intimidating. And I think, I've been to a few networking events where there have been other 2% Rising members, and it's really lovely to kind of already have like your kind of people.
Sometimes you feel like you're on your own, don't you? And you're like, oh my God, I don't know anyone this time. But I know you get more and more people as you go along. And I think it's been really useful to network and just to go and meet people and, build those meaningful relationships. I think is really, really important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is a relationship-led industry, and I think that gets lost a lot, especially in music production. A lot of my dissertation for my MA was about kind of like almost like decentering technology in a way and focusing more on interpersonal relationships and how that is beneficial for everybody in those spaces.
I totally agree. So what kind of challenges and barriers have you faced accessing the music industry? Tricky one.
Well, I think first and foremost, I think in terms of own kind of self-confidence and belief, there's been a long road with kind of battling imposter syndrome, which I know is really rife, and kind of really affects people's kind of ability to, I think, especially when you're kind of trying to gain more experience in an area, but then you're constantly having that internal battle. And that's something that I kind of struggled with, particularly the first year of my course, was just like, I'm not meant to be here, I don't know what I'm doing. And like that definitely started to kind of dissipate. But I think that also as an artist, like, has been really hard because you're kind of often in a space where you're quite isolated, or you feel, I think also for your own kind of personal safety or your own kind of personal protection, like it's hard sometimes to go out and network or go for meetings with people that I started doing that when I was like a 16-year-old girl, and like definitely kind of was quite naive to actually, like, how I probably wasn't really being taken seriously most of the time, and I was probably being taken advantage of in places of kind of my enthusiasm. And I think I've definitely seen and really like witnessed a change in the artist world in terms of more female artists on lineups and at gigs, and that's really encouraging to see. I think there's been a kind of shift from being pitted against each other to have that spot that like, you know, now we're all just like, no, if we lift each other up and support each other, that's better for everybody. So I think that has been something that previously was quite difficult and now has changed a lot. And then I don't know, it's just disheartening sometimes seeing kind of statistics for kind of how underrepresented women and gender minorities are. But I think finding your community and like the communities that I found with 2% Rising, and also I've kind of built a kind of self-releasing artist community as well. That's the way to kind of deal with those things.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And again, it's about supporting others. That's why I do this show. Like, I know sometimes it's really hard to get some opportunities. So this is why I did the podcast, because I wanted to create an opportunity for myself at the time. And then I thought I can offer other people an opportunity as well here. So it works both ways. And I think that's the way the music industry should be working as well. Like, we should be empowering each other. We should be supporting each other. And we should also be trying to collaborate more, because I think there are a lot of egos in the industry sometimes, and it's about navigating those as well and just being friendly and nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And how's that kind of impacted you? Has it impacted you in any ways?
I feel like I kind of gone on a bit of a roller coaster ride with just kind of my identity and my kind of output as an artist. I think like when I was younger and first starting out, I had a huge amount of energy and confidence and, you know, kind of that drive to like, I'm going to move to London, I'm going to make it. And I think the reality of that hit quite hard. And I've also, had some really tough personal times during those years. And I think if you don't have the kind of financial stability or the kind of, I think especially for freelancers, that's really hard because you don't have an HR department as a freelancer, you don't have that support. So I think that's been really hard at times, and like it's difficult to like not to internalize that and then just be like, oh, well, it's my fault that things aren't happening, or, you know. So I think I've kind of had to go through a lot of kind of process of understanding how I do work well and kind of how to kind of protect myself when I know that I'm going to have to do something that might be difficult. Like I always find releases really hard, for example, of, you know, I think it's a big emotional release as well. And you kind of have to do so much that it's really draining. So yeah, I've just kind of tried to notice that within myself and like come up with different strategies of, definitely kind of making sure I've got some nice things in the calendar planned around releasing and not just alone in my head.
I think it's having that structure as well, isn't it? Just making sure you can try and build some structure around it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also just kind of recognizing the kind of work and the kind of environments that do suit me. I think I have a bit of a tendency to want to do everything and be in lots of different roles, and actually sometimes you just have to go through a bit of trial and error to be like, actually, I don't particularly like that. So that's been kind of part of that process, I think. And I feel for the first time in a long time really quite balanced actually now, in terms of like all of the different bits of work I do feel very relevant to who I am. And also it, like, especially working at the Roundhouse and working with young people, that's kind of a really kind of gratifying role, because I'm seeing kind of that actively impact their lives, and obviously the arts is so vital for that. So I feel like I'm kind of balancing all these different parts of me at the moment, which feels good.
Good. That's really nice to hear. That's really lovely. Thank you for sharing that with us, Annie. And kind of what are your thoughts and feelings on equality, diversity and inclusion at the moment in the music industry?
Well, having just written a dissertation about it, not not great. Obviously, as we kind of mentioned, some statistics like that came up with the Annenberg Inclusion Initiative in this year in 2023 found that across I think it was like about 1,000 pop songs released between 2012 and 2022 that 22.3% of artists were women, 12.8% of songwriters, and 2.8% of producers.
Wow.
And so I think, you know, those stats haven't really changed since at least 2020. And as much as there is a lot of lip service of, yeah, you look at all the stuff that we're doing to make the music industry more inclusive and equal. And I think, you know, actually seeing there isn't that structural change. And it's happening far too slowly.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we need equity, don't we, before we can have equality, because not everyone starts on that same starting line, do they? And I think that's the struggle that we have as well.
Yeah, and of course these things there's not just about gender, like there's a huge problem with diversity across the board. And I think there's also, yeah, like another part of my dissertation was kind of looking at the levels of discrimination, and those stats are really shocking as well.
Please share them with us if you want.
Well, the ISM report reported that like 66% of people in this survey reported discrimination at work, and 78 of whom were women.
Yeah.
And obviously, like I mentioned, a lot of people are freelance. They don't have someone to go to for that support or someone to report to. And I think that's kind of something that I think really needs to be addressed, because it's obviously happening like far too often.
It's funny you said that, actually, because I had a meeting with Attitude is Everything about their kind of, they did a campaign, Unseen Unheard campaign with promoters, and they were reviewing it. And I did mention about this reporting issue, because there doesn't seem to be anywhere where people can report, whether it be if they want to, because I think it's a good way of measuring where there is issues in the industry. And at the moment, it's just all being, okay, some of it is being noted, but not all of it does get noted down, does it?
No, absolutely. And I mean, that's not just in the music industry. I think there is this kind of real issue with people not feeling able to report discrimination or abuse. And, you know, I'd count myself among those people as well, because like I've definitely experienced things that I haven't felt comfortable or had any kind of faith that the person I'd be reporting to would do anything about it. And I think that's something that absolutely needs to change, and people need that reassurance that, you know, they will be reported.
Yeah, and feel safe as well, because I think it's about respect and it's about feeling safe. And if you don't feel respected and you don't feel safe, then you're not really likely to talk out either, are you? Because it's quite intimidating at times. It can be scary.
100%. And I think that's another thing that I really want to see change in the music industry is all of these kind of like hierarchical power roles, power dynamics, I think are just really damaging for everyone involved. And I think the more that we kind of change what the kind of stereotypical roles are of like producer being the person in charge of everything and the artist has to kind of do whatever they say or feels indebted to them, and like, you know, those things immediately create an imbalanced relationship. And oftentimes obviously the producer is a man and maybe the artist is female, and then all the kind of gender imbalance comes into that. So I think, yeah, like a lot of my research was kind of exploring different practices within the studio of how we can kind of make those spaces feel more inclusive, more focused on relationships between people and creativity and emotion, rather than this is my role, this is your role, that's it.
Yeah, it's very rigid, isn't it? And I think we need to be more open, especially as creators, because that's when all the magic happens, isn't it? When you feel free and you feel able to share with each other and learn from each other.
And also there's huge value in that for kind of, I think like I love as an artist and a producer working with people and being really surprised at what they bring and kind of being open to other ideas. And I think, yeah, that's definitely a really important part of the creative process in creating things that I think it's boring if you're just doing everything the way that you plan to do it, you know.
It's learning and everything's evolving all the time. I think it's a very fast-paced industry. It's very competitive as well, isn't it?
Definitely. And it's probably more oversaturated than ever at the moment. Which I think, again, I've got quite a lot of thoughts on that in terms of especially like social media, and a lot of kind of younger artists that I've been talking to have said like, oh, but I just get so overwhelmed with social media. And I think my kind of biggest advice with those kind of things is like, well, you've got to kind of, I think as soon as you start doing things for other people and to like kind of tick a box that you've been told to do, and it kind of just starts to drain your authenticity, and that is probably the biggest thing to hold on to as an artist.
I think so. And it's kind of different because you're navigating the music industry as well as being an artist. So tell me about that. How do you manage to navigate that?
Well, I think they're much more closely related than I think some people would think. Like a lot of the artists that I've been working with have come to me because of my releases as Austel. They like my sound, they like my style. And I think, I really admire producers like Justin Vernon from Bon Iver, or Aaron Dessner from The National, like people that have really established artistic identities and then produce as well. And I think, that's kind of the space that I see myself being in. And also I think, I've had my fair share of uncomfortable sessions with producers, especially as a young person. And I think, I'm keen to ensure that I can be part of the change, that other people don't have to have that experience. And so I want to kind of promote a kind of better culture within being a producer and kind of within the studio. And that's something that I'm really passionate about throughout all of my work.
I love that. And I wish everyone was like that too, because I think that would just make everyone feel like there is progress, things that are happening. And if everyone does that, then we're all creating a safer, fairer, more inclusive environment. So well done, Annie, and keep doing that amazing work that you're doing, because I know you're really accepting and open-minded too. And I appreciate all the help you've done for me.
Oh, thank you.
And I love your music too. It's fantastic. So in the next couple of years, what would you like to see improve? I know we've touched on a few little bits, but is there anything you'd really like to see improve in the next couple of years?
Oh, so many things. I think as I'll go in two different sections. So as an artist, I would love to see, and I know this is in the works slowly but surely, but I'd love to see the streaming model change and everyone receive fairer pay. Like I think that's really fundamental. Like artists are really, really struggling to make money right now, and it's such a huge industry in the UK. It's not that there's not enough money in the industry, it's just not being distributed fairly. And I think, if people aren't being paid properly for their work, it's unsustainable.
Yeah, that's
People that are going to be able to make art are people that have money in the first place, which, there's a whole cohort of problems that come with that. So that's something that I think I really need to see like change soon.
I agree.
And then, yeah, as a producer, I mean, the same thing, because obviously that still applies, but also, yeah, I really want to see a kind of further increase and a faster increase in support for female and gender expansive music makers. And obviously there are some amazing grassroots organizations like Saffron, like Omni. I mean, there are so many, and obviously 2% who are providing that support in that space, but those organizations need support, otherwise they can't continue the work that they're doing. So I'd like to see kind of larger organizations who have the resources support those smaller organizations who are doing the work.
I think that'd be fantastic. And that's creating, like you said, a more equitable industry, because at the moment it's just really not equal for everyone to access. And I think that's another reason why I want to do these podcasts, is to help educate other people on how can we support these underrepresented groups better? How can we help people with these challenges, and how can we change things in a positive way? Because I think that's what we have to do. I think it's kind of ingrained in me that I just want to see everything improve, and I just kind of want to make sure that it does happen, you know what I mean? Not just say it and give lip service, because I think that's really annoying.
Yeah, totally. And I think, that can be on lots of different scales as well. And I think even just kind of working with other individuals and kind of having that impact, that does pollinate and spread, and people realize, oh, it can be done differently. So
Exactly, I agree. And do you think there's kind of cultural and age differences that kind of affect the kind of progress that we have around equality and diversity in the industry?
Uh, I think there is in everything really in terms, but not. I think I don't want to make a sweeping statement because I know a lot of older people who are incredibly supportive of younger people coming through and kind of opening those gates and giving a leg up, and obviously that's really vital. And yeah, I myself have worked with some amazing, really experienced people who have kind of really stuck their neck out for me, and like, yeah, that's been really valuable. So I think there is some resistance, but I kind of feel that that's going to change anyway, because the more that more people do that, it's kind of a domino effect, isn't it? The more that like people start to show their support for change, then I think people jump on board. But
I
yeah,
think change is happening, but it's too slow a pace for my liking. But yeah, we just got to keep going and look at the positive work that is being done. I
yeah.
totally agree. The next question is, how has the industry affected your mental health in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, it's not been great all the time. Yeah, I've definitely kind of really struggled, and I think, yeah, as I was saying, kind of like when I was younger, I think I kind of had all these kind of very rose tinted ideas of what it was all going to be like, and it kind of, yeah, it definitely kind of has hit hard when things have not worked out in the way that I'd kind of hoped, or yeah, if I've kind of, I think it's difficult when you're let down by people, or people have like kind of betray your trust,
Yeah,
which,
that's
you know,
happened to me a lot.
yeah, it's really damaging because you don't want to kind of carry that through to every person that you meet. But it definitely starts to build up a bit of a wall. So yeah, I try to kind of be as kind of open, but also like protecting. I think, yeah, when I first started kind of working with a lot of different people, I was probably a little bit naive to that, and I think I'm trying to be a bit more kind of measured about who I do decide to work with.
Yeah,
um but also not letting that kind of, yeah, cloud my um joy or experiences, and yeah, kind of. And I think, yeah, there's definitely kind of been times where I think the loneliness of it all kind of really hits. That's kind of the most difficult thing. And I was really grateful to receive some support from Help Musicians this year, for some funding for my album that's coming out in February. And they're an amazing organization, and I think like they offer obviously the funding, but also free counseling services for musicians, and I would really urge anyone that needs it to use that resource. Because yeah, I had some really lovely sessions with them as well in terms of kind of managing day-to-day life, and then also having like creating bigger plans and goals. And I think, yeah, that really, really helpful to kind of, and I think just having someone in your corner, knowing that you've got that support.
really does help, doesn't it? And I think that's one of the things. Help Musicians is fantastic. I'm trying to, like we said, we're making these tracks, but I did apply before, but they're like, Saskia, you need to have the music. So step by step. So there's like, sometimes you're in a catch-22 where, oh, I need to make some music so they can listen to it, but can't afford it at the moment. So it was just like, oh no, what am I going to do? But it's taken me a little while, but we're getting there. Yeah. I was going to say to you as well, Annie, have you ever suffered from discrimination or stigma in the music industry?
I think probably the most when I've been working as a live sound engineer. There's been a lot of people, male bands that I've worked with who have very much kind of dismissed my skill or my role, and that's very frustrating when you're literally being there paid to do your job and someone tries to make out that you don't know what you're doing. And yeah, and I've not seen that happen with my male counterparts, so I'm pretty sure that's very much directed at me. And then I think the kind of biggest thing is also kind of, I think, yeah, being kind of objectified and uh yeah, made to feel like people actually don't want to work with you because of your music, but because they, you know, want to have a relationship with you or something else. And I think that's really frustrating.
Sorry.
And yeah, I've had some bad experiences of that again when I was a bit younger, and I think, that really kind of uh damages your confidence as a creator, because you're like, well, am I actually any good? Does this person actually want to work with me because of my music? So yeah, that's kind of been some of the hardest things that I've had to kind of deal with. And I think, yeah, like I'm definitely kind of had the brunt of, yeah, the kind of sexism and misogyny that you can kind of experience as an artist and as an engineer.
It's not okay. That is not okay, I'm afraid. And it makes me sad to hear these stories, especially from females and underrepresented groups, that they feel that, because it doesn't help anyone's confidence and it doesn't make people feel that, you know what I mean? Like they're always welcome or they're always
No,
respected.
yeah, and I think it's really, I think, yeah, I feel like very protective over other people when I hear about their stories, and then I'm like, well, hang on, actually that's happened to me as well. And like, I think there is that kind of yeah, I don't know, I don't want to put anyone off working in the industries that I do, but I think just really kind of stressing that, unfortunately these things do happen, and just making sure that people have support networks and people that they can go to. I mean, yeah, I'm so grateful for communities like 2% and my fellow engineers and artists who unfortunately have also experienced these things, but at least we can support each other through that and talk about it, and that's the best way to kind of get through it at the moment.
Advice. And I think just to know that you're not on your own as well, because like you said, find yourself, your tribe, your community, and share that with people, and also report it as well if you feel the need to do so. Because if we're not reporting things, then again, we're not going to be able to change anything, because people just think they can get away with it.
Yeah, exactly.
If anyone wants to find you, Annie, like viewers and listeners, where can they find you?
So I'm Austel Music on all social media. So that's AUSTEL. And yeah, I'm releasing my new album Dead Sea in February, which has been a long time coming. So I'm very excited for people to hear that. And yeah, obviously using socials predominantly as an artist, but if anyone wants to contact me about production stuff, it's all through that as well.
I'll leave a description in the link below as well underneath the podcast, so people can find your work, can come and find your music, and obviously connect with you there. What kind of major wins and successes would you like to share with the viewers as well, up to date?
Oh, well, I got a couple of things that I can't really talk about just yet, but I think well, getting the record done has been a big achievement, and there's been some really amazing things coming off the back of that. That yeah, it's all kind of gonna hit the fan next year. But yeah, I think in terms of, yeah, achieving my MA this year has been like the biggest achievement of this year, of kind of getting that, having never done an undergrad and never thought that I'd kind of be able to do that. So that's been my achievement of the year, I think.
Yeah, you totally deserve that, and you're just amazing.
I should also mention the Be Brave track, which is obviously how we kind of connected more. But yeah, I co-produced this amazing garage track in support of the Lionesses football team at the World Cup this summer. And that was, yeah, an amazing experience this year as well.
Yeah, well done. Well done, you. Keep up the amazing work. And thank you so much for coming along today, sharing your story, enlightening people of some of the issues and barriers, sorry. And yeah, thank you again. It's been amazing.
Saskia,
Speak to you soon. Take care, Annie.
see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Right, got to do this bit now. Don't worry, I'll cut that bit out. There we